We are joined by an unbelievable hero, Shero, and someone I saw talk, and literally it was one of those talks which rarely happens. I'm not very impressed often, and where the hairs on basically every part of my body just stood on end because it was so inspiring. So Stephanie Boyce, who is currently Deputy Vice President of the Law Society. Next week will be Vice President of the Law Society, and then will make complete and utter mind-blowing history in 2021 by becoming the first, it's the first ethnic minority president. So because a lot of people will go, is she the first female? Because that's often the go-to of, you know, oh, it's the first woman, but no, it's amazing. Of the Law Society, solicitor. I mean, literally, I could go on and on about your CV and various titles, but everyone wants to hear you and your story, so I will hand over to you. Go on then. My hairs are waiting to stand up again.
Thank you very much, Emma. So, as you said quite rightly, I am the Deputy Vice President of the Law Society of England and Wales. So the Law Society is the professional body for solicitors, and we represent more than 180,000 solicitors in England and Wales. And our aims include upholding the independence of the legal profession, the rule of law and human rights around the world. So, as you said, Emma, on the 14th of October, I will become the Vice President of the Law Society. And in October 2021, I will become the 177th, the 6th female, and the first Black, the first ethnic minority person to become President of the Law Society in its almost 200-year history. So this is the article that the Times newspaper ran in respect of my election headline. This is the headline that the Times newspaper ran. And as you can see, Law Society elects first ethnic minority leader. And a question I'm often asked is, how did I do it? How did I become Deputy Vice President of the Law Society of England and Wales? Simply put, I didn't know I couldn't. So let me take you on a journey, my journey into the legal profession. I began my life journey in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire, a place where I would come back to time and time again. Aylesbury in the 1970s, when I was growing up there, was a small, sleepy market town with little ethnic diversity compared to today, a large, diverse, ancient market town. I grew up with the sounds of injustices ringing in my ears. Domestically and globally, I could see people struggling to exercise their rights. And this is what inspired me to join the legal profession, to become a solicitor. After all, legal rights mean absolutely nothing if you don't know when those rights are being taken away, or you don't know how to exercise those rights. So after living in Aylesbury for a number of years, at the age of 12, I went to live in America. And America would have a lasting impression upon me. I would be overwhelmed by the poverty, the injustices, people unable to access justice because of their low socioeconomic position, people struggling to exercise their rights, people having little or no rights because of the colour of their skin, and how I long to have my voice heard, to encourage and inspire the voiceless to speak. In 1991, I returned to the United Kingdom to live and study, but not before I came across my first barrier. My US qualification, my high school diploma, was not enough to get me entry into a British university at that time. I would spend another 2 years undertaking an access to higher qualification diploma, and this enabled me to enter London Guildhall University, as it was then named, in February 1996 as a part-time student, whilst working part-time at British Rail. By September of that year, I had enrolled full-time, leaving behind my life in Aylesbury and all things familiar, packing up my worldly goods in my car and heading to Mile End. But how I longed for home, the familiarity of the old market town, the parish church of St Mary, the canal, the views of the town and beyond. In June 1999, I graduated with an LLB honours with politics. And in September 1999, I entered the College of Law, Guildford, where I would study and complete the legal practice course, or the LPC as it's sometimes known, the final academic qualification on my route to becoming a solicitor. In 2000, the year of the Millennium Bug, I commenced my training contract, the last hurdle to becoming a qualified solicitor. And again, I would return to Aylesbury, the spiritual cradle of the Paralympics, the place where my dream had started all those years ago as a young child. I would commence my training contract, my 2-year training period, in the historic part of Aylesbury with a local firm. Having walked into that firm for the first time as a trainee solicitor in 2000, I would walk out for the final time as a qualified solicitor in 2002, an officer of the court with an overriding duty to the rule of law and the administration of justice. The legal profession, specifically the solicitor profession, has a clear role to play in championing the values and concepts of justice, fairness, equity, and legitimacy, and never more so than now. I'm often reminded myself to not lose my joy in the difficulties of life. We are in the middle of a pandemic called coronavirus 19, which has claimed the lives worldwide of over 1 million people. No country, no place has been left untouched. The virus is a stark reminder that life is precious and for living. Many dreams have been placed on hold whilst we wait for the virus to pass and a vaccine to be found. If but not for the pandemic, I would have been the Vice President of the Law Society by now. A delay of 3 months to allow colleagues and myself to deal with the impact of the pandemic on the profession. So if we could go to the women leaders slide, please, Emma. So let me take you back in time. 100 years ago, in 1918, a coalition government passed the Representation of the People Act 1918, which enfranchised all men as well as women over the age of 30, subject to a minimum property qualification. In 1928, a Conservative government passed the Representation of the People Equal Franchise Act, giving all women over the age of 21 voting rights on equal terms with men. These momentous acts served as a great beacon of hope to millions of women who had been disenfranchised, denied the right to vote simply because of their gender, but who were now somewhat liberated from a male-centered gender system, or so it was thought. But 100 years later, women are still held back by a male-centered gender system. 100 years later, women still languish behind men in pay, education, political representation, and the judiciary, to name a few domains where gender inequality is prevalent. 100 years later, women are still fighting for the right to be seen and heard. 100 years later, if you happen to be a woman, Black, Asian, minority ethnic, gay, disabled, and poor, you find yourself exiled on a lonely island of discrimination. When the architects of these acts declared equal voting rights for women, this was a promise, or so we thought, that this would set the foundation for progress towards greater political, social, and economic equality for women. It is obvious today that 100 years later, women still face gender equality barriers and prejudice. Whilst there is progress, there is still much to do in closing the gender pay gap and rooting out everyday sexism and discrimination. We must work together to strengthen laws around structural inequalities so that there are no unfair barriers, that everyone has equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, disability, sexuality, or background. We must work together to widen access to justice. The law must change, and now is time to make real the promise of equal democracy, to lift our voices in sisterhood and solidarity to improve women's rights, to never be satisfied until there is true parity. On paper in this country, women may have all the same judicial rights as men. However, the current laws are failing women and can have a particularly detrimental effect on women and their ability to access the justice system. For example, cuts to legal aid, shortening court opening hours, or compulsory mediation may have a greater impact on women's ability to access justice in contrast to their male counterparts. Women in particular have been negatively impacted by the current coronavirus, and women, especially women of colour, are more likely to have been laid off or furloughed during the COVID-19 crisis, stalling their careers and jeopardising their financial security, according to the latest McKinsey report. But we must work together to achieve equality, justice, and safety in the law for all women, to lift our voices. Now is the time to make equality a reality for all women of backgrounds diverse and distinct. We will not be, we cannot be satisfied until equality rolls down like waters and humility like an everlasting stream. Turning to the legal profession and the Sex Disqualification Removal Act of 1919, which allowed women to enter the legal profession. In 1922, the first woman was admitted as a solicitor in England. 100 years later, for the first time in our history, women outnumber men practicing as solicitors in the world's second largest legal market. Despite this progress at the junior end of the profession, the advancement of women to senior roles is slow, coupled with serious attrition later on. Further, women are still seriously underrepresented among senior judges. And to quote Lady Hale, the first woman president to lead the Supreme Court, the courts and judiciary should, as far as possible, reflect the diversity of the UK population. The Law Society, in reporting in 2018, stated that the solicitor's profession had made positive strides in promoting greater diversity and inclusion. Women now make up, as I say, half of the solicitor profession. Black, Asian, minority ethnic solicitors make up just under 17% of the profession, and approximately 16% of members from our most recent survey reported a long-term physical or mental health condition or illness. We are agreed that whilst the size and composition of the legal profession in England and Wales has changed, and significant progress has been made in widening access, nonetheless, extensive evidence reveals ways in which females and Black, Asian and minority ethnic female solicitors continue to experience fewer opportunities than their white male peers, resulting in unequal pay and progression outcomes. I come from a background as a child of a single parent from an Afro-Caribbean working class home. My grandparents and parents come in here to the United Kingdom from the Caribbean in search of faith, hope, and greater opportunities. I was the first person in my family to stay in education after the age of 16, and the first to go to university. I went to a comprehensive school, having failed the selective exam, but in my heart, I nursed a dream of becoming a solicitor. But time and time again, I was told because of my socio-economic background, I would never make it. I stand before you today, 18 years qualified and unrepentant that I never listened to the naysayers, because I believe that every mountaintop is within reach if we keep climbing. I believe that one day I will live in a land where I will not be defined by my gender, my colour, my background, but by my qualifications, my aptitude, and by the content of my character. That I will not be expected to recoil from being a strong, proud Black woman so as to please others. That true equality will exist for all and not just a few if we keep climbing. If we keep climbing, we can reach the skies. But to achieve this, more ethnic diversity in senior positions, including the law, and being able to access the law is necessary. Now, in 2020, women are facing a new challenge, the COVID-19 pandemic, and how the pandemic has affected women at work, including the unique impact on women of different races and ethnicities, working mothers, women in senior leadership, and women with disabilities, according to Lean-In Org and McKinsey and Company. A survey conducted during lockdown showed that half of working mothers in the law are taking on more childcare responsibilities than their partners during the COVID-19 lockdown. 9 in 10 respondents had taken on extra childcare and homeschooling responsibilities, with a third forced to reduce their working hours. Half of respondents said they were taking on more childcare responsibilities than their partners. 73% were finding the situation hard to juggle. The survey was conducted by the Next 100 Years, the next project from the team behind the first 100 years, which charted the journey of women in the law since the Sex Disqualification Removal Act 1919 paved the way for women to become lawyers for the first time. There is a risk that gender equality in legal services has already taken a significant step back due to the pandemic. Our latest research shows that women now make up 52% of practicing solicitors and 63% of new entrants. However, while the figures are promising, the data also shows that inequality persists in the upper ranks. Women make up only 31% of partners in private practice, and the pay gap remains a problem, particularly at partner level, with pay differentials between men and women far exceeding the national average. These are our latest figures from 2020 and are due to be released later this month. The Law Society is using these figures to produce a diversity profile of the solicitors, which provides a range of information and on all aspects of diversity against which firms, members, legal businesses can assess their own profiles. The profession has made great progress, but there is still a long way to go to achieve full gender equality in the law. Our research shows that the key obstacles to women's career progression are unconscious bias, unacceptable work-life balance demanded to reach senior levels. Traditional networks' routes to promotion are male-orientated. Many cite flexible working as crucial to improving diversity. Alongside juggling demanding legal careers, many women are also the primary caregiver in their family, often at crucial points in their career. Creating a more flexible, inclusive working environment gives those with care responsibilities equal opportunities for progression and helps create a more diverse senior leadership. The profession has made important steps in the right direction, but for real change to take root, firms, members, legal businesses across the country must put the right policies in place and work together to build a more diverse workplace for the next generation. Increasing gender equality in the profession is not just a moral and ethical imperative, but a business one too. Compelling evidence shows that companies with a good gender balance consistently outperform those that do not. The Women's Business Council estimates that fairer treatment for women in the workplace could add over £150 billion to GDP by 2030. This month, we celebrate Black History Month. Recognising Black History Month is becoming increasingly common. The Law Society and the solicitors profession strives to ensure access to justice, equality for all under the legal system, and to promote the rule of law. It is essential that our profession reflects the communities we seek to serve, and that we ensure talented individuals are able to progress in this sector, whatever background they come from. Determination, skill, and ability must be the decisive factors for entry to the profession, not race, religion, gender, or any other starting point in life. It has been great to see so many firms, legal businesses hold events to celebrate Black History Month in recent years. And even this year with coronavirus, there has been so many events. It is a great symbol of how seriously we take this issue, but it is important that it translates into action. Diversity must be placed at the heart of all business decisions and pushed up the most senior levels of the profession, especially at partner and senior leadership level and in any decision-making bodies. Clients must be encouraged to hold firms, legal businesses accountable if they do not feel they reflect the diversity of the society they represent. Improving the diversity and inclusiveness of the legal profession is both a moral and a business imperative, as I said. It is essential that our profession absolutely reflects the communities we serve and that we ensure talented individuals are able to progress and thrive in the practice of law, whatever their background. As I said, in October 2021, I will become the 177th, the 6th female, and the first Black, the first ethnic minority person to hold the post in the history of the Law Society of England and Wales. And I am determined to leave this profession more diverse and inclusive than the one I entered. But more must be done to remove barriers, open doors, and confront unacceptable behaviours that does not allow everyone the opportunity to succeed and make the most of their talents. My story is one of resilience and determination, a burning desire to stand by my dream until it was realised, a definite purpose, and one I was prepared to stand by until it was achieved. Four times it took me before I was successfully elected as Deputy Vice President. I was not prepared to quit. If you have ever been discouraged, faced difficulties that have taken the very soul out of you, marooned you in the desert of despair, been knocked back, faced hurdles that no matter where you are in life, you too can reach your full potential if you are willing to get into action, to train your mind towards your definite purpose, to never quit. Thank you.
Did it again. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for that. The you had a, if I remember, a mantra. I was trying to think about it the other day of looking in the mirror, like on those days where you just think, I can't do this, and it's just a battle, or why am I doing it? What is it? Because it was something that stuck out, and I heard you before that just sort of keep going.
I've got loads, but one of the affirmations that I tell myself religiously is, and I'm not bragging on me, I'm just, sharing this because this is what gets me to where I need to get to. And I tell myself that I'm a masterpiece, a prize possession, fearfully and wonderfully made, fully equipped and qualified to run this race that has been designed for me. And I share that because so many of us talk about imposter syndrome. And so when that nagging doubt creeps in, just tell yourself, I'm a masterpiece, a prized possession, fearfully and wonderfully made.
It's amazing, but you know what? I think as women as well, we are so good and much quicker, I think, than men to say, no, we can't do it. No, we're not good enough. The little critical voice in our heads is, it's awful. It kills us, doesn't it? I think that confidence problem. In it. But just quickly, and you touched on it. Because you're very involved in the women and getting that on an equal playing field, and I've been looking at the stats, and before we went live I said I've had rage on that, and there's a lot of it is flexible working. And I know you did did you head up there was a survey in 2018 on and it was something like, I wrote it here, 91% felt that flexible working was the big issue of not in that, and only 52% actually work in flexible working environments. And obviously that's even more now with everything going on. Have you seen, that was 2018, has anything changed since then?
Lots have changed since 2018. I mean, the immediate past president, Christina Blacklaws, did tremendous work around women in law. She took it to, a number of jurisdictions across the globe. And basically undertook one of the biggest surveys to survey women across the globe in law. And of course, flexible working was one of the main issues. The fact is, the coronavirus took possibly 48 hours to do what the legal profession would have taken perhaps 10 years to do. and that is to work remotely, embrace technology. And, you know, the fact that we're doing this, you know, I'm in my home and I suspect you guys are in your home. But before but, you know, before this, of course, you know, you might have come to our studio, I might have come to your studio. But the fact, of course, we can reach so many people virtually. But I caveat that because, you know, it's not the great it's not the great problem solver, because there are a number of access barriers that enables a number of individuals, primarily vulnerable individuals, to not be able to work virtually, or they might not have the hardware, the infrastructure, the skills. You know, we've heard stories about vulnerable clients who, in the family court hearings, who are having to use most of their limited income, topping up their mobile phone to do a remote hearing. You know, I'm supposed to have super optic fibre broadband. I don't think it's been anything but that. You know, it hasn't been that since lockdown. You know, one weekend I had the iPad die on the Friday, the laptop die on the Saturday, and trying to find, you know, replacements. But, you know, I was lucky enough that I had the resources that when I finally did come across available items, that I could purchase those. But not in all seriousness, not all of us has the knowledge or the, you know, the know-how or the resources to do that. And so I caveat that by saying, let's embrace it where we can, but, you know, we also have to be flexible and think about those who can't.
Yeah, but that's the thing, it's being flexible, isn't it? And it's sort of, to me, it's not everyone works from home and that's what it's about. It's that actually, well, how are we gonna go back and have, you know, it's like my husband works in the city and I happen to think his boss is being a bit of an arse, because expecting them in the office and they have 8:30 in the morning meetings. And I'm like, we had this argument this week, I'm like, who needs 8:30 in the morning meet? Make it 9. You know, where's the awareness of the parents and the fact there's limited childcare going on? And as you said, it's actually the impact has been on women to step up and have to do, and anyone with kids knows that between 8 and 9 in the morning, it's hell on earth of getting. So to me, that flexibility is whether you're in an office or whether you're at home needs to, and that's probably like, well, you know, because it was done back in 2018, that survey, and that's probably what people were talking about then, is there's the rigidity and probably laws very rigid. So, and so that if there's ever going to be equality, it needs to, that bit of empathy and just understanding and bit of give.
Absolutely, and certainly that's where we're at the moment. As I say, you know, we've managed to embrace technology. You know, COVID has forced that upon us. And, you know, we've seen a number of legal businesses, firms who have reduced their office space and, you know, have given employees the option to work from home, you know, on a permanent basis. But as I say, that's got to be, you know, that's got to be balanced with, you know, women have undertaken the brunt of childcare responsibilities, home, you know, domestic responsibilities, domestic cleaning responsibilities. Some have said it's taken us right back, you know, to the 50s to 60s.
Housewife, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we, you know, so what we ask is that, you know, people are open-minded to that everyone's different, and I think also it's about being bold enough, you know, and confident enough to have that discussion with your boss and say, you know, this works for me. Can I have a bit of flexibility? You know, can we do things a bit different? COVID, if there's one thing that COVID has taught us, it's that, you know, we can do things differently.
Yeah. And what's your just advice on that? Because as we said at the beginning, the confidence is a big thing for women. And there's that nervousness of asking bosses because it might look like you don't take your work seriously. And what have you done? And because, you know, you've faced loads of challenges, and what a few things that have got you owning your voice basically to ask for it? Or have you always been like that?
I think, you know, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, you know, a chap said to me, and I discovered, you know, the Windsor Fellowship, and I would get a scholarship to go to the then Lord Chancellor's Department. But I remember a young man saying to me, he said, my gosh, he said, your rays are absolutely, he said, you're like the sun, your rays are blinding. And I was like, huh? But he said, no, I don't mean it to be offensive. He says, you know, there's something about you. And the whole point is that, you know, I think, you know, looking back, you know, people said to me when I went off and did different things and whatever, people said to me, and if I listened to those people, I possibly wouldn't come out of my home. And I think it's important that you know, not every bit of advice that people will give you is advice you need to take. You've got to know what advice to take and what advice to leave well alone. And, you know, be able to just actually stand in your own truth, you know, tell your own story and just be confident enough to say, I can do it, despite what anybody else is telling you. Because I had people tell me, Stephanie, because it was 4 times, people said to me, Stephanie, you're embarrassing yourself. Go home and rest. It is not going to happen. Never in our lifetime will we see a person of an ethnic minority become president of the Law Society. Now, if I had listened to those individuals, you know, where would I be? So the whole point is that, you know, we have to confidently stand in our own truth because the world needs to hear our story.
And finally, before I let you go, your very busy, very important job. If you're looking back and everything, if you were sat there, you know, having a cup of tea with your 18-year-old self, what would you say to her, knowing what you know now?
Well, that every door is open if you push hard enough. You know, I absolutely believe in push. You persevere until something happens. You keep pushing.
Yeah, do you know, I always say if the door shuts, just take it off its hinges. Get a power drill. There's always a way of removing the door, isn't there? So
absolutely.
You know, mine's slightly more aggressive. But thank you very much. That was amazing. So thank you for joining us and imparting loads of words of wisdom. So
thank you very much.
How about Emma, the other Emma?
Yep, thank you very much, Stephanie. That was amazing. I will sign off there and hope everyone joins in for future webinars. But thank you very much, Stephanie. It was awesome to hear from you. Bye-bye.